You're listening to China Africa Talk.
Jambo, ni Bridget akikuletea kipindi kinachohusiana na China na Afrika.
Vous écoutez le dialogue sino-africain avec Bridget.
Everything China, everything Africa.
Olá, você está ouvindo China Africa Talk com Bridget.
سيداتي وسادتي مرحبا بكم في الحوار الصيني العربي مع بريدجيت.
This is China Africa Talk. I'm your host, Bridget Mutambirwa, and I bring you discussions on what's happening with China and Africa from a Chinese and African perspective. Last week, we explored how the FOCAC framework has shaped development over the past 25 years. Today, we look ahead. The Beijing Action Plan 2025 to 2027, adopted at last year's FOCAC meeting, serves as the latest roadmap for China-Africa cooperation. It outlines concrete measures across the key sectors such as trade, industrialization, green development, digital innovation, and people-to-people exchange. In just 1 year, the plan has already yielded visible results, from new investment partnerships to growing collaboration in education and technology. So, what areas will define the next phase of this partnership? And how can stakeholders build on these commitments to drive long-term transformation in line with Africa's Agenda 2063? Joining us for this discussion are Wang Jingjie, Research Assistant Professor at the National School of Development and the Institute of South-to-South Cooperation and Development at Peking University, and Charles Onanaiju, Director of the Center for China Studies in Nigeria. Professor Wang, you're currently in Zambia, and you're talking about some of these companies that are literally being revived owing to Chinese investment. And China's evolving investment approach is shifting from large-scale mega projects to localized, high-impact, otherwise known as small and beautiful projects. What kind of projects are these, and what are some existing examples? Maybe we can delve more from what you are seeing there in Zambia.
You know, Bridget, people are talking about small and beautiful projects all the time nowadays. I think we need to clarify something before we talk about this small and beautiful projects.
Okay.
You know, Africa needs large-scale mega projects, such as infrastructure projects.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
You know, it's important. Without these large-scale mega projects, there's no way we can conduct the small and the beautiful projects, right?
Okay.
Because the large-scale mega projects set up a really good foundation for more small business owners, more small projects, right? So we don't mean the large-scale mega projects. They're great. They are what needed by the African countries, but only focusing on the large-scale mega projects won't help.
Right.
So that's why large-scale mega projects plus the small and beautiful project, they're like two legs.
Creates a balance.
Right? Yes, exactly. Before, we only have this one leg, you know, jumping. But now we have another leg. You know, we walk very balancedly, like what you said. We walk, you know, longer time right now. So this is large-scale mega projects are still highly needed, in greater demand for the local community here. But small and beautiful projects can draw all the development to the community level, from the national level to a more community level.
Right.
I think that this is the developmental stages, step by step. And we still see the large-scale mega projects are ongoing, and they benefit the continent, make the infrastructure connectivity much more efficient for the country to country-wise and within the domestic transportation-wise. But we definitely see small and beautiful projects are ongoing, and we need more and more small and beautiful projects to benefit the local community. So we call it 小而美, small and beautiful projects.
Okay.
So these projects are designed these grassroots, powering local communities and ensure sustainability. You know, for example, we visited the vocational training invested by a Chinese entrepreneur and also cooperated with a vocational school in China.
Okay.
They have a vocational training school initiated early this year, training the local youth for all the needed skilled work with very affordable tuition. And this is a very small project, but they have already educated the local youth from learning in the classroom to do the practicum in the workshop, big workshop in the school. So from class to the workshop, then to the intern. The Chinese company offers internship for each of the students.
So it's like a whole chain. It's like a whole chain.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is something I agree that we need.
Yes. They created this very small closed loop training from in-classroom learning to the practicum in the workshop in school, then to the internship in the Chinese company, and then work for the Chinese.
This chain,
making this closed loop from education to the job. So, and there are many youth are lined up to sign for this school. And for those poor family youth, they apply for funding supported by the government and some NGOs to support them. And for those students who can afford it, they will pay the tuition. And some of them, they cannot afford it. They have scholarships. And some of them, they can get loans paid back when they have a job in the Chinese company. So all the different varieties can benefit from the different levels. So this is a very acute example to show these grassroots needs. I talked with had a master of that. He reported every 10 new grads, 7 of them choose to work in the Chinese company. And another 3 started their own small business. That means a lot. We not only offering jobs to the youth, but also we make the youth become the job creator. So from the job seeker to the job creator, these kind of small and beautiful projects will benefit local community in a tremendous way. And name few, this is just one of the examples. There are also the digital rural project conducted by one of the Chinese telecommunication companies. They set up a very small projects benefiting one village by another. In this village, they have the solar system, they have accessibility to the internet, and also they have school opportunities. So it's a multi-dimensional development for one specific village. By that way, they can see small changes within one village. If this model working so well, they make another village by using connectivity with electricity and water and education and health system. So one village by a village, small step at a time. Yes, so these kind of projects are benefiting the local community. So when we define this small and beautiful projects, it's community level, fast delivery, and high return of investment on welfare projects for the local community. Clinic, a small clinic set up in the community, and agriculture, like agricultural chain off-grid energy. They build the off-grid energy system, the solar energy systems. The children will have electricity to read books when it's dark. And digital public goods and training online. They deliver this training systems through this digital public goods channels in a small rural village. Those are all helping the local communities. Before, maybe it's very gigantic, huge project, benefit the country level. Now is down to the ground. Yes. So the rural water access, vocational ecosystem, like what I mentioned, right? The ecosystem of the vocational and digital enablement, like this smart village project I mentioned. This telecommunication company uses digital enablement, distribute the clean energy by the solar panel. So we see in this vocational school, they also trained this. They have a major called a solar system. So this all focused on the solar panel system. So they are all beautiful, small. A nice profile.
That's the beautiful thing I like about these projects as well, because they actually identify the need for that community.
Yes. Exactly.
Charles, when we look at small and beautiful investments, how can African countries more proactively align the benefits of these small and beautiful investment models with their own strategic development priorities and the AU's 2063 vision?
Like I have always maintained, Africans need to step up and take these important opportunities and advantage. China and Africa are opportunities to themselves, historic one and important one for that matter. And I will state again, in the history of African international partnership, we've had partners who are willing but not able, and those who are able but not willing. In China, we found a partner that is both willing and able. So we need to step up, and this we have to do with policy engagements. It is no longer enough to have handshakes, to have photo ops, to have conferences, to have meetings, to come to China, to look around, to admire China. It's no longer important. What is important is to see the opportunity that China actually presents to Africa. And that throws the ball back to African policy makers. How are they responding to the opportunity of China? Of course, responses have been varied. Some have been very forthright. Some have been there are those who are lacking. There are those who are forthright. There are those who are in the middle way. But we must respond because China opportunity respond to various challenges of various African countries. Like Africa is 54 countries. There are no one size fits all. Yeah. We have different needs. But the interesting thing about China opportunity is that you can find a niche at what point you can engage that relates, that aligns to your national priority. That is the very important thing about China. Every country in Africa can find a niche within the cooperation to align with your national priorities. So what is important is for us to engage in policy options, design policy responses. It's not enough to hear China open-mindedness, to hear China generosity. It is not enough. Just like 2 days ago, we spoke about the Global Governance Initiative. A lot of African countries had aligned to it. A lot of them, statements have been issued across Africa welcoming it. But it's beyond statements. And that's been my position. Yes, China opportunity is there, but how are we engaging it in practical terms? Like I said, there are various attitudes to it. Some are forthright, some are lagging, some are in midway. But in my view, African countries need to step up. And you've just spoken about small, impactful projects.
Yeah.
That it matters a lot. Like, within the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative, of which almost all African countries are partners, there are provisions. In fact, there are engagements along that line. Beautiful, small, impactful projects that aligns with poverty alleviation measures in Africa. We seize the moment to create opportunities to ask China to engage with China, not only with the resources that is available, but with her experience, because China's experience in ending poverty is in the public domain. The specific ideas, the general idea that is contained in the approach to ending poverty in China is in the open. Of course, like I said, nobody can replicate what the Chinese have done, but there are very obvious lessons that can be learned, that are very useful, that are very instructive in designing policy that engages the challenge of our people, especially with respect to poverty. One of China's major approach to poverty is rural infrastructure. We must engage that. Our rural communities are sleepy. They are garnered with huge wealth, but untapped. The abilities of our people are untapped. Sometimes they are exposed to nature. They are despondent because nobody is pushing them to engage the opportunities that are bound in our rural communities, which are mostly overlooked. And interestingly, China did exceedingly well in transforming rural infrastructure, transforming rural agriculture. Like from a few days ago, the highest bridge in the world, built in Guizhou.
Oh, yes.
Like Guizhou is one of the poorest provinces. They were one of the last to be taken out of the poverty register. Oh, that is the site of the tallest bridge That shows how much attention China pays to rural revitalization, to rural infrastructure.
Yeah.
So this is it doesn't take much to understand this. You know that if you want to take people out of poverty, build roads.
Yeah.
And building roads is simply install rural infrastructure. People will trade themselves out of poverty. People will produce themselves out of poverty.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to spoon feed them. They can trade themselves out of poverty. From being poor, they can become net creators of wealth. That is what China has done. And it's not a magic. It's not a miracle. No matter how people try to call it a miracle, it's not a miracle. It's methodical. It has to do with political will. It has to do with policy consistency. It has to do with fidelity to the idea that people is center of development. People should be. So for me, the idea of small, impactful projects is an area that Africa can engage China's experience. You know, and in my view, there is so much that can be done within that sector.
Professor Wang, the Beijing Action Plan 2025 to 2027 identifies 10 key areas that will shape the next stage of this partnership. Now, which areas stand out to you the most, and in which areas are we already seeing commitments being turned into action?
We have already mentioned some of these action already being visible. As you said, this 2025 to 2027 Beijing Action Plan identifies the 10 key partnerships action. Of course, when we implement those 10 key partnerships, some of them may be faster, some of them may be ongoing, some
That's
of
right.
them might be still at the planning, landing, implementing, pre-implementing stage. But we see it's happening already in multiple areas. But based on my own research interest, I can name three of these visible effects already stands out. One is this, as I said, is a value-added source. So this value-added industrialization cooperation, in this value-added mentality, we see this industrial chain initiatively. It's not benefiting just to China. We add this Africa into this industrial value chain. This is what the African country always wanted it happening. You know, they are not just a low-end natural resources provider. They become an important player in this value chain development. We see that DRC and Zambia and Angola and many these natural resources rich country, they have an agreement. They have this national development plan. They banned the raw material exportation. They needed this lithium, copper, cobalt, and they needed to be processed. Maybe not in a very deep level, right? But a very preliminary, even the preliminary processing will create a job and make these industrialization happening for the local community. Right, it's totally different development trajectory. Right, only when we have the processing and manufacturing ability, we can benefit our people, benefit our children in a very longer way, not just by selling our natural resources. This is very tremendous change and a very obvious change. I think this change is mutual. China's policy and initiative encourage the industry chain development for Africa. So all those are the China part, but also need Africa, the government level. They needed to be engaged. It's happening, and it's very much tremendous in a way, going to have huge impact on the community development. That's the first we see. It's already happening and it's different from before. Secondly, is this economic corridor development and the standardization, make this leverage connectivity in a green chain development, right? For example, in Zambia, we see this Tazara upgrades, right? And it is very important. So on September 29th, the signing ceremony of the Tanzania-Zambia railway activation was held in Beijing, right? So this marking a significant milestone in the project that entering a new phase of financing and construction. It's getting real, all right? It's not just a It's visible. And when we're talking with the local community at the government level, at a business level, the local businessman, the local government, they all reported it's going to impact the Zambia economy in a huge way. Before the low efficiency of this railway and low volume of transportation, but within the following a year to 3 years, we would see tremendous change, better running, maintenance of the roads. And so this, we're going to take the goods in and out in a much convenient way. Along this way, Zambia is very rich in terms of agricultural land, potential agricultural land, but nobody to fully utilize. It's only 15% of the land it utilized. 85 have not been developed yet. So along this railway, more agricultural and industry being established along this way because the convenient transportations are faster. It's going to boost the economy in an unbelievable way. So we're very looking forward to see this economic corridor based on the infrastructure upgrades to carry on in the following year and 2 or 3 years. So after 3 years, it's going to be fully finished. This is the second part of the visible project, which is connecting with my research. And then thirdly will be something you already familiar is the workforce pipelines. Without the talents, without educating our youth, it's difficult to have a sustainable and cannot harvest the demographic dividend, right?
Yes.
We don't need to mention many, many more workforce pipelines happening. Luban workshop, Banmo workshop, and China Open University, Africa Learning Center, remote learning center in different countries. And also, as I said before, the Chinese investors also engaged in this workforce pipelines as well. Right. So with this good preparation of human capital, a well-developed workforce, when the industry is there, when this policy is there, the booming of the economy will happen much, much faster. If China has taken about 40, 50 years to reduce poverty, become who we are right now, I think we can foresee in the very near future, the faster development on this continent will carry out even much faster in this way. They can fully utilize the technology dividend, the AI dividend, all those going to help. But you need to have workforce. Yes.
Charles, as we just wind off our discussion here, the new action plan, the Beijing Action Plan 2025 to 2027, as it is implemented, what should African stakeholders be focusing on to leverage these commitments and drive long-term economic transformation?
Well, like you know, the Partnership Action Plans is a roadmap. A roadmap designed with considerable input from the two sides, reflect the need of the two sides, reflecting their consensus around issues of the roadmap in going forward. So for me, it genuinely captures the key issues in the two sides to drive a partnership that works, a partnership that delivers tangibles, a partnership that delivers concrete results. So what we have to do is meet each other halfway for its effective implementation, whether it is in terms of energy transition, whether it is in terms of infrastructure construction, whether it's in terms of capacity, whether it is in terms of mutual learning, because interestingly, that was the first in the partnership plan. Mutual learning, sharing governance experience, shoring up our capacity to govern, shoring our capacity to design policies and implement them faithfully, implement them diligently. These are very important areas of cooperation that is actually outlined in the Partnership Action Plan. So far, so good. We have seen flurry of activities, flurry of engagement since last year. The Chinese side, African side have been engaged in a whole range of activities, exchanging notes, comparing notes. I urge the African side to continuously take very serious measures to work toward the implementation of this. Because as you know, one hand does not clap. China, everybody knows, means what it says and says what it means. and is determined to meet Africa halfway. I wish to urge our African brothers to walk also their part of it so that the Partnership Action Plan can deliver. It can scale up, because the significant aspect of China-African cooperation is continuously scaling up, continuously pushing the frontiers and enabling benefits for our both people. So I think the Partnership Action Plan was designed also to scale up and deliver more tangible, deliver more benefits. And you could see already trade is booming, and especially the balance. The historic challenge of the trade imbalance is gradually being closed. From paltry 50 billion US dollars, Africa is scaling up to more than 100 billion in terms of operation. So the imbalance is closing in, thanks to the very important commitment of the two sides. We want to see more commitment on the African side. And as China opens up more with a view to have Africa scale up and close the imbalance gap, I urge Africans to seize the moment. Seize the moment. This is very significant to our modernization. Modernization is not skyscrapers. Modernization is the well-being of your people, their physical well-being, their spiritual well-being, their cultural well-being. These are the totality of modernization. Like President Xi already declared at the FOCAC last year that China and Africa are very important partners whose modernization will contribute to world modernization. In fact, he said, being almost more than half of the world, there will be no global modernization without modernization of Africa and China.
Right.
This is a declaration of intent that has all the fire in the belly, but we must walk the talk. And Africa, particularly, must walk the talk. We must scale up to modernize. We must modernize. And to modernize means to lift our people out of poverty, to elevate their spiritual being, to elevate their cultural being, so that our culture can flourish. We must create the material condition to enable our culture and spiritual well-being to flourish. This is the challenge of modernization. And China has expressed its willingness to support Africa on our path to modernization. But we must be very clear. Modernization is in the context of our peculiar circumstances. Perhaps no two types of modernization are the same, because it must take into account the very crucial variable of your national condition and social reality.
Right.
Therefore, Africa must reach out to its wisdom, which is one of the oldest in the world, to define a path that is sustainable, to define a path that leads us toward the path of modernization.
Right.
I like to quote President Xi where he said, there are many roads to Rome. Many roads lead to Rome. So we can reach Rome through several roads, and Africa can reach modernization through a path chosen by itself, traveled by itself, with the support of partners like China. So the modernization of Africa within the context of the current blueprint can be pushed forward, can be made to move faster if we only take advantage of the historic opportunity of China-African cooperation.
Okay. I'd like to say thank you again for your contribution. That brings us to the end of this discussion, where we are commemorating the 25th anniversary of FOCAC, and we're also assessing what has been done over the past 25 years and looking on ahead.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, Bridget, anytime.
Listeners, you can subscribe to our online newsletter on CGTN or Substack to get more insights on China-Africa relations. Just search China-Africa Talk. For now, it's goodbye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post it on social media or leave a rating and review. Thanks again. See you next time.